Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Sunday. I almost said July. God, it'd be nice if it was July. June the 7th, 2020. We're still in that horrible year. Myself, Chris Maloney, 44 officially. Pretty good week as far as birthdays went, but pretty sad week as far as a little bit about the other stuff went. Alongside me, of course, Sean Bates of the Scumbags of Wrestling. Sean, how you doing today? How you feeling?
Yeah, doing well. It was a rough week for me. We did our show the other day. Monday, we did a fantasy warfare tournament. I felt like I was going to die by the end of it. If you end up seeing the video, I'm struggling near the end. Had to do a COVID test. Work asked me to do that. Passed. It's negative. I'm good. Took 3 days off, and I'm good to go with this. Just launched a Scumbags podcast.
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought maybe Steven had said something to piss you off, and it's like, I never seen Sean off the air that quick, but I was kind of worried, so I sent him a text, and then the next thing you know, he filled me in. So he is doing better though. You still with it? Okay, I just wanted to make sure you weren't frozen. All the technology issues going on this week. So Thursday was my daughter's second birthday. And even if I wanted to do the show that night, it would not have happened. It's a rarity that we do TNT on any other night than Thursdays. But when I got home, decided to try to load up my laptop. Hey, hard drive failure. And next thing I know, I pretty much lost a lot of stuff, including the official intros to the show. I'm going to have to pretty much redo everything. But I've been thinking about doing new theme music anyway. So, but good thing with StreamYard, the fact is everything was kind of backed up. I got the images I needed to, new hard drive installed. Took, a good couple hours to get everything back to normal. But yeah, like I said, I touched base with Sean and Steven, said, hey, no show tonight. And then all of a sudden I get home and the hard drive had failed. So I don't know if that was karma or what. But anyways, only a good $70 out. I'm getting a new hard drive, so hopefully this one lasts. But piece of advice, everybody, back up your stuff. Otherwise, you may never see it again. But doing this on Sunday, it means a couple of things. UFC 250 took place last night. I'm going to touch base on that in a couple of minutes. But the big thing that's taking place today is NXT. You know what? Actually, no, I want to get to something first because I got to give props to somebody. So, Mr. Scott Hunter, episode 20 of this show has been the highest ranked view show that we've done as far as TNT goes. And I do believe Fantasy Warfare as well. So, almost 400 hits. And I'm not talking just engagement, 400 views as far as episode 20 went with the interview with Scott Hunter, who was chatty, not as I think he gave Cody Deaner a run for his money as far as the length went, but I think it was the longest show that we've ever done. But yeah, Scott Hunter, almost 400 views just on Facebook alone. That's not counting anything on YouTube or Twitch or any of the audio stuff that we're out there. So yeah, guys, if you want to see your viewers up, get Scott Hunter on the show. Sean, what did you think of the interview with Scott? I mean, and he was good with promoting it as well. So I know we do it on the Scumbags and then CWN and then TNT stuff as well. But Scott had promoted the show itself on his social media feeds. So how'd you think the interview went?
Yeah, I think it was really good. I enjoy it when we were able to get some guests. We've had Tyson, Carter Mason, Cody, now Scott. So hopefully we can line up more and get more hits and get still talking about what we love wrestling-wise. Like there's tons of information always coming out, but until you actually get the talent in front of you and talking, those are the more interesting things because you can go anywhere and find the dirt. You can find the news, whether it's legit or not. But when you're interacting with somebody, that's a special thing compared to digging and basically reporting what everybody already knows or sees.
Yeah, so guys, if you are watching us live, give us your questions, comments. If you're listening to us on audio, thank you very much as well. But yeah, I love doing the interviews as well. Sometimes I love just doing the research. It's like, holy crap, that guy actually did that. You know what I mean? But yeah, you'll see another guest coming up pretty soon. So I'll announce that probably on next week's show, which is only 4 days from now, which is kind of cool. So anyways, guys, like I was saying, NXT TakeOver in Your House takes place tonight, 7 p.m. on the WWE Network. We're going to do Fantasy Warfare today. And all of a sudden, so wait a second. I said, we're we got to do NXT takeover tonight. So 7:00 WWE Network tonight, 6:30 pre-show. Right after that's a Ric Flair special, which would be kind of cool. So a couple hours of wrestling for you guys taking place. Sean, we'll go through the card. We'll get your comments on anything that maybe stands out to you, as well as your picks. And I know this is twice over for you because you already did the scumbag. So you'll have to make sure you stay consistent. So.
Well, it's okay, and I'm allowed to change a slight bit because of our banter. You might be able to sway me from what I just posted in the Scumbags Wrestling podcast. So you never know.
It'd be interesting to listen to Sean here, listen to him on the Scumbags as well to see if his answers differ. But match number 1, 6 women tag team match. Mia Yim, Tegan Knox, Shotzi Blackheart taking on Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez. Sean, who's your pick in this one? And surprising that Chelsea Green wasn't part of this, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what's up next for her. But who's your pick in this one?
Yeah, well, we have to find out what's going on with her because she just fired Robert Stone, and Robert Stone's trying to get Aaliyah possibly. So they're on their own little island, I guess that way. But I'm going to go with the heel team of Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez. Just the other side, they're all over the place. I know they did the big promo for Shotzi. Tegan has been here, there, floating around with her feud with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. But then there's Mia Yim, who's having her feud with Candice LeRae. And I think either Yim takes the loss to Candice LeRae or is caused by Candice, or Mia's somehow watching the victory happen and is not part of the finish, and Candice is gloating. So they need that to help fuel more of the Mia Yim, Candice LeRae. The other ones are just extra dressing, I think.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on this one. I see the heel team winning for sure. Candice, I know Triple H very high on Tegan Knox. We saw Mia Yim last year at TakeOver in Toronto. Didn't impress me going up against Shayna Baszler in that match. But this one here, we got Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And it kind of reminds me of female version of Shawn Michaels as well as Diesel when they had put the two of them together. Interesting to see if Gonzalez turns on Dakota Kai, but the history, I mean, yeah, I kind of understand where, the Knox versus Kai, I think, comes in, but Candice LeRae, I think they're pushing to the moon right now. I think Shotzi is an entity. I don't think she's necessarily going to be skyrocketed. She is great, but she's, a character, where Candice LeRae, I think with everything that's going on right now, they need somebody kind of coming up to the women's championship, considering the fact when you look at the 3 in the match later on for the women's title, and I'll get to that. But I see Candice LeRae being pushed to the moon right now, so I can't go against that team. So Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez for the win. Next match, and this is going to be interesting because a lot of rumors and hype surrounding this one. Finn Balor taking on Damian Priest. Sean, who's your pick? Why, and do you see any surprises happen in this match?
This one's a little hard to pick because Damian Priest needs a win. He's been tangled up with the North American title, and I had Keith Lee and Dijakovic involved with that, and he came out on the losing end. Obviously, he's not the champion, and now he's in this feud with Finn Balor, who looked like he was going to be doing a match with Dream, got taken out of that due to being attacked. Then it was Cameron Grimes, but then became Damian Priest. But at the same time, Balor should be over in the UK doing stuff with Walter. So that's on hold until things clear up and people can travel again. But I think feel good moment reason Finn Balor should get the win, because even if nothing continues with Damian Priest, it puts him in a good position for still being main event consideration. So I'm going Finn Balor.
So let me ask you this. I'm gonna I'll do my pick right now. I'm gonna say Damian Priest. I think Finn Balor's on a losing streak, but with the politics and the McMahons and the American presidents, is it possible? Do you think we see Walter tonight?
Is he getting into the United States?
That's what I mean. It's like there's all these inconsistencies about the fact of how is WWE continuing to do what they've done. But if there's anything that's going on to try to get him in, and whether, I mean, I know one of the reasons he signed WWE contracts was so the fact is he could stay in the UK. But it would be very interesting because of even more Ronaldo earlier today on the bump was hinting that, Priest versus Balor is the match to watch. And there's something that's going to take place about that match, and I still haven't figured it out yet. But if there was any way in the world to try to get Walter in, I think tonight would be the night. It would throw off everything. It would surprise a lot of fans. The internet would be buzzing. But I mean, in the perfect world, Walter would kick the crap out of Balor, and it's funny because when Balor went down to NXT, he was complete heel, and now all of a sudden he's babyface again. You know what I mean? But if perfect world, like I said, Walter would get involved. But again, Damian Priest, I think, is going to take the win in this one. Balor is one of those guys who can move to SmackDown Raw easily, and NXT needs to start building new stars. And I think Priest, much like LeRae, is on his way up. Next match, North American Championship match. One of the main stars right now, Keith Lee, and I'm enjoying this guy taking on Johnny Gargano. Do we see Gargano take the title, or is this it for him in NXT, and maybe he gets the possible call up?
I think I've read somewhere that Gargano is almost like the Undisputed Era guys. They do, and also Tommaso Ciampa. They're happy being in NXT. They don't want to be ruined by going up to the main roster, especially with the history that, unfortunately, the graduate or the upgrade, whatever they want to class it as, going from NXT to a main roster situation involves. They want to stay in NXT, and I could see this as where Johnny Wrestling becomes a 2-time North American champion. It could be obviously with shenanigans thanks to Candice, but it also allows Keith Lee to advance into the main event picture. So while losing the title may hurt him for a bit, it won't in the long run. I see Gargano winning, Keith Lee getting more benefits later on.
So I agree with your statement with regards to the guys being happy at NXT. What I don't agree with is who you chose. I'm going to go Keith Lee in this one, and I'm going to say this, and we're eventually going to see it. It's funny, I was listening to a podcast, I think it was yesterday, and they're talking about Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, WrestleMania 6, and then next thing you know, it's Keith Lee, I think, and not necessarily that WrestleMania moment, but I think Keith Lee is going to bring that North American Championship up for a fight against whoever NXT champion is. And I think we're going to see a title versus title match eventually, just to hype things up. Keith Lee is dominant, main event pitcher for sure, because he's one of those guys. I mean, it's one of those things too. It's like Hogan and Warrior. All of a sudden, Warrior drops the IC title, tournament set up. I think Mr. Perfect had won it after that. But what happens? Maybe, was it tournament? Or was it Battle Royal?
It was tournament. Came down to Santana and Mr. Perfect in the finals. I'd love to see Keith Lee retained. Don't get me wrong. He's been an awesome North American champion and just had Priest and Dijakovic really to deal with. So there's still a lot of places and room for him as North American champion to continue.
Yeah, so opposites on this one. Sean's picking Gargano. I'm picking Keith Lee. But again, both of us agree dominant force down there in NXT. Speaking of dominant forces, match of the night coming up right here, folks. Tommaso Ciampa taking on Karrion Kross. I love Kross. I have pretty much since the moment I saw him at Impact TV tapings. Just a character is it's absolutely amazing. What he's doing down at NXT, I was worried that WWE wasn't going to get it, and they have. And not only have they got it, they've made him a lot more stronger, a lot more of a heel, and he's just powerful. Ciampa is somebody who is one of those guys who's been around the wrestling business for a while, but the fact is, when it comes down to it, he's still young at heart. He's that fighting spirit, that Shawn Michaels style, you know what I mean? So I got to go Karrion Kross in this one. No way in the world they're going to basically kill Kross's character already. I see it like the fast hitting match. Scarlett, I don't think is going to get involved. If she does, great. But I think they should just let the two of these guys just hammer it out, and then basically Karrion Kross for the win. Like I said, they can't kill his character this soon. Sean, agree, disagree?
I totally agree. This is his basic first real match. Like the other ones have been squashes. He did take out what was it, Bronson the other day on NXT. Their entrance is really huge. I listened to After the Bell this week, and Road Dogg was on it, and he was talking about how Karrion Kross is got a lot of untapped potential, and they're really happy with what they have already invested with him. Tommaso Ciampa is a mainstay. He's well established. This will be a fight. I don't see it being a full-out wrestling match. This is going to be more of a brawl than anything. Probably match of the night potential, as you pointed out. But Karrion Kross picks up the victory. Scarlett could end up being more of a distraction for towards Ciampa, but not get physically involved. Though we do know she can actually wrestle. But yeah, this is going to be Karrion Kross's moment to establish himself on a bigger stage out of TakeOver.
Yeah, one of the coolest things, and I'll say this as a wrestling fan, that I love about TakeOver is the fact is you've only got usually 5 or 6 matches taking place. To me, it's the perfect amount of time for a pay-per-view, especially when WWE tends to go usually 9 matches, 8 on the full show, and then the one on the pre-show, the kickoffs and stuff like that. But it's funny because I'm looking at this, I'm like, wait a second, we're already we got 2 matches left and that's it. But I mean, it's in the pre-show, you'll never see a match on the pre-show, is at least what I've seen. You get the In Your House history with it. Did I see a Todd Pettengill promo happen? Was that right?
A Todd Pettengill promo that happened. I actually took the audio and put it in Scumbags just to introduce this. I'm hearing that there's going to be a mixture of what we're used to with TakeOver with some old school In Your House tweaks to it. Whether that means the stage is going to look like the old house sort of setup that we saw 25 years ago when Todd and Stephanie started off the first ever In Your House. It was 25 years ago last month. You know, anything's possible. They're going to probably do some graphics going to look like the old school 90s In Your House stuff. They're going to have some fun, I think, tonight, along with the regular stuff you expect for TakeOver.
I'll tell you this. So 22 years ago, Hamilton, Ontario, I get to see In Your House Breakdown. I think you were there as well, eh?
No.
No, you weren't. So I'm one up on Sean. I know we're at the same Raw and at the Sky Dome together.
Yeah,
and we've been front row SmackDown. And coincidentally, this was all before Facebook and people reconnecting and everything else. But the In Your House Breakdown, I got to see one of the best events I've ever seen, because the fact is you had Christian make his unofficial debut. He came through the crowd and just kind of, I'm not sure what the commentators were saying. Austin ended up losing the belt that night through a double pin. And then it was The Rock, Ken Shamrock, and Mankind in a steel cage triple threat match. I think the Intercontinental Championship was on the line. But yeah, I mean, to me, when I think In Your House, I immediately think of the logo that's behind us here, and the whole Todd Pettengill and that house, and Shawn Michaels. I think Vader, Bulldog stuff, all that sort of. I think it was that sort of genre, that generation. Shawn Michaels is champion, everything else. But I'm looking forward to tonight, the setup. And then all of a sudden, I was on WWE.com about 5 minutes before the show started. I was like, is that Todd Pettengill? But I'll have to go back and see it later on. But back to the show. Oh, Sean, anything else to say?
No.
Okay. So 2 matches left. NXT Women's Championship match. Charlotte Flair as champion taking on Rhea Ripley, taking on Io Shirai. Triple threat match for that title. I'll give my predictions first. I think Charlotte has become a major mouthpiece, to the point I think she's overconfident as far as her character goes. So I'm going to say she's going to lose it. I'm going to say Io Shirai, this is her swan song as far as NXT goes. I'm going to say she goes main roster in the next 2 weeks. So at least one person, as Rhea Ripley. I'm going to say getting the pin on Charlotte Flair to win back the title. Sean, agree, disagree? What do you think of Io Shirai and the rumors of her going up to the main roster?
Okay, I partly agree with you on what you mentioned. It's not surprised that you would be possibly brought up. Did not hear that rumor yet, but with Asuka being the Raw Women's Champion, maybe Kairi Sane needs a tag team partner, and they can put those 3 all together in that regards, and Kairi and Io could go after the tag team titles. I think Io Shirai, though, is in this match to take the pinfall or submission, whatever the final outcome is. It's going to be her losing the match. I think it's going to be her losing the match to Rhea Ripley, because as much as Charlotte is almost carrying the whole women's division from all three brands on her back by going to all three, they need to pull back on this. Rhea Ripley did have some visa issues that was rumored, and she confirmed on a recent interview that that did happen. She didn't have to go back to Australia to settle them, but they did get settled. That's why she's back in the picture and wrestling right now. But if you have Rhea Ripley win the title back without beating Charlotte, that still allows there to be story in the future for the fact that Rhea Ripley has yet to beat Charlotte Flair. And that big moment can come on a major pay-per-view, whether it's SummerSlam or a WrestleMania or something like that, where Rhea Ripley finally does beat Charlotte Flair. That's going to be her big moment. People are already comparing the two. There's 10 years age difference between them, but it's not tonight. Rhea gets the title back by taking out Shirai somehow. Whether the other women from the NXT are really pissed off at Charlotte being there and distract her and take her out, that would be interesting to see, right? Because everybody wants to dethrone the queen. But Rhea takes the title regardless of what happens.
So it's interesting how we can tie it into fantasy warfare here. So the last episode that we had done was greatest women's champions, and there was a debate. Almost a on-screen fight between me and Steven with regards to Charlotte Flair and Tessa Blanchard, and me wanting to see them. That fantasy match would be dream, right? But then now that I'm thinking about this, and Charlotte Flair, she is up there. And it's like you said, the difference between Charlotte and Rhea is 10 years between them. What about a fantasy warfare match between Tessa Blanchard and Rhea Ripley? I mean, here you got two age groups. I think they're very similar in age. The mentality, the hardcore, just basically beat the crap out of somebody in the ring, but they're skilled wrestling.
Throw on Tony Storm.
Tony Storm as well. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Steven was talking about the potential, Tessa Blanchard going to WWE, and in a way she'd have to lick her wounds, so to speak. AEW would throw a lot of money at her, but I think, Steven, here you go. I'm going to agree with you. Okay. I'm going to say if Tessa Blanchard becomes a free agent this coming summer, like her contract was supposed to expire, yes, I would love to see her in the WWE more so than AEW. So there you go, Steven. I'm finally agreeing with you for once, so we can,
yeah, well, just to bounce back a slight bit on what you were talking about also with Tessa, she hasn't shown up at anything with Impact for the last couple tapings because she's been stuck in Mexico.
Yeah, hold your thoughts on that, though. We're gonna get to that.
Oh, okay, because there's a lot coming up with that. So if we're going to talk about it after, I will wait.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a mark for Tessa Blanchard. So same way you're a mark for Sunny and Pritchard there. So, anyways, guys, main event time. So we've got what they're calling the backlot brawl, and I don't know if you've heard anything about what this is, but somebody a podcast again I was listening to was saying, what happens if it's one of those things? I think it was Eddie Guerrero and was it Edge who were part of it, and I think Finlay did one with William Regal where they had basically. I think JBL and Cena might have done it as well, but you can correct me. But they had this circle, surrounded by cars and headlights and everything else. What happens if the backlot brawl was like that between Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream? I think that'd be kind of cool because it'd be out of Velveteen Dream's element. Adam Cole, we know, can go hardcore match, wrestling match, whatever the case may be. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say Adam Cole wins. I'm going to say, like Sean had said, the Undisputed Era. Not trying to leave NXT anytime soon. I think he'd be a great fit in the main roster, but not yet. So I see Cole retaining. I see them building new challenges for him. I think Karrion Kross, if he gets hold of Adam Cole, Cole is done in the future, or Keith Lee for that matter. But I'm going to say Adam Cole for the win. And Sean, who's your pick? What do you think is I almost call it backlot brawl. Every time I think the backlot, I think of the Piper Goldust thing from WrestleMania 12. You know what I mean? But what do you think this is, and who's your pick to win?
Well, I've heard the same thing that it's behind the Performance Center and it's the Ring of Cars. I think also Ken Shamrock did one with The Rock or somebody as well. You brought up JBL and Cena. So I've heard that same thing as well. Not surprised that William Regal picked this because he did it with Finlay in WCW. And this is, I guess, going to be more of a cinematic one as well. They've already recorded it. Have not heard any results, thankfully. But I don't know. I'm thinking it can go so many different ways. There's also talk that Adam Cole's contract is up and he could go to AEW. But then I've also heard the other side where his contract is coming up, but he just signed a 3-year deal to stay. So I guess maybe the result will be based on maybe where he's going. But I'm going to go with Velveteen Dream either way. They say it's his final opportunity to get the title shot. Most times when they put that stipulation in, it's the last time that's supposed to happen, and they actually do win the title. If Cole is staying, though, they have so many other options for him, whether it's there's talk about trouble with Roderick Strong. And then there is also Dexter Lumis, who's been looking at everybody at the Undisputed Era and having issues with them. So, if Cole is staying, that's awesome. And there's so many things that he can do still. So I'm going with Velveteen Dream just as something different. But, yeah.
Funny thing is, if they put the title on Dream, you can see the internet blowing up. As like, oh my God, he's gone. He's AEW, blah, 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 main roster, So I can see your point, but I'm gonna still continue with Adam Cole for the victory. So guys, NXT Takeover in your house taking place tonight, 7 p.m. WWE Network. And then, like I said, the pre-show starts 6:30. There's footage and stuff all over YouTube all today. So take a look. Just to get you prepped and hyped for NXT Takeover. Sean, I'm going to expect your answer on this one. Did you watch UFC 250 last night?
No.
We're goal of the show before the end of the year is trying to get Sean to watch one UFC event. I'd say Conor McGregor would be the guy to watch, but we'll get to that momentarily here. Now, I can say this. Sean has sat in a bar with me with regards to watching McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. So he has watched Conor McGregor perform in a somewhat ring. But anyways, still catching up on MMA. I seem to go through these phases, so I'll be a huge fan, go down, huge fan. And when I say that, I've watched it all the way since UFC 1. Royce Gracie, all the way to Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock, right up behind me there. If you look up top, and I don't know how well you can see 2 bottles of whiskey, Conor McGregor style, and then you can see UFC, and that's Severn versus Shamrock. A huge fan of that. Then all of a sudden, I kind of lost focus on that to the point where all of a sudden I was like, okay, Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, then GSP happens, and then Conor McGregor, and guys like John Jones and Rashad Evans, who AEW ties and everything else, So it's been up and down, but I'm trying to get back into it because, it's one of those things that I just love. Basically, I'm not going to go through the whole card, but some of the highlights was, and Sean, this is one of the reasons why you should be watching UFC, because you got first round knockouts taking place. Well, minute 54, round 1, Sean O'Malley defeated Eddie Wineland by knockout. I haven't seen this yet, but one of the comments I saw was, holy cow, he is legit. So you get down to the main event. Amanda Nunes defeats Felicia Spencer, who is Canadian. Unanimous decision, so she retains the title there. One of the best parts about UFC is the fact is it's better than boxing, because it's not that Mike Tyson one-time main event, that all of a sudden lasts 30 seconds and you're out $75. Fact is, a lot of times in the prelims and as well as the early prelims and even the main card, there's a lot of stuff going on. So you have undefeated records in UFC, undefeated records in MMA that all of a sudden next thing you know, they're gone within, say, about 30 seconds, because the fact is a knockout, there's a TKO, whatever the case may be. Sean, I'm going to ask you this. So I was impressed with the fact that Nunes retained, because she is basically one of the faces. The tie-ins between wrestling and MMA are absolutely huge because of the fact that Ronda Rousey's, the Brock Lesnar's, the Ken Shamrocks, the Dan Severns, the list goes on. All of a sudden now you're watching Mike Tyson AEW ring, you're watching Rashad Evans. There's a rumor at one point, DC, Daniel Cormier coming over to the WWE. More Ronaldo, who came over from Pride Fighting, who could call a boxing match, wrestling match, MMA match. Let me ask you this. What is it going to take for, number one, for you to be interested in a UFC pay-per-view? And don't give me the word no, never. But you've got scripted wrestling versus non-scripted MMA. What is it about UFC, MMA in general that you don't find appealing? Let me ask you that.
I like my violence predetermined. I'm not into the whole I'm beating the piss out of you for money, and the injuries that definitely can and do happen in those, and the concussions. Those are in a way purposefully done because it's part of I need to get the victory. Now, when it happens accidentally in professional wrestling, yeah, it's an accident. But they're doing a dance, they're doing a performance art, and it's athletic at the same time, and it's not meant to be barbaric. Yeah, I probably would not have been going to any Coliseum back in the Roman times to see people thrown to lions or just battered down. I prefer, as I said, my violence to be predetermined.
All right, fair enough. So my goal before the end of the year is to basically get more knowledgeable as far as UFC and mixed martial arts goes. That, I mean, wrestling is second nature to me, but MMA, like I said, I want to be able to explain this better, to watch it a little bit more, because like I said, like Sean O'Malley, who I'd mentioned, was 11-0, 3-0 UFC going into this fight, bantamweight, going against Eddie Wineland, who was 24-13-1, and then 6-7 in the UFC, and he ends up getting knocked out first round. You know what I mean? And then y'all see you've got Canadian, who Felicia Spencer, the Phenom, 8-1, 2-1 in UFC, taking on Amanda Nunes, who's champion 19-4 in MMA, and then 12-1 in UFC, and stuff like that excites me. And then when you get watching it, even some of the stuff that you don't know who the guy is, or the prelims, whatever the case may be, the early prelims, which is made to be the kind of like the dark match, so to speak, in a wrestling show. That is the stuff that makes people highlight and stand out and this and that, But anyways, my job is to get better at MMA because I want to be able to focus on a little bit more in this show. And then my second job is to get Sean to eventually get hyped about a UFC fight. So we'll have to wait and see. But UFC 250 was last night, did take place at the UFC Apex. So I can't wait for UFC 251 to take place. And by then I will be more knowledgeable because that is my goal. In other news, Conor McGregor says he's decided to retire from fighting. This comes courtesy of Sportsnet.ca. Conor McGregor has announced his retirement for the third time in 4 years. McGregor abruptly made his latest dubious declaration Sunday morning on his Twitter account, where the former two-division UFC champion also announced his retirement in 2016, 2019. He goes on to say, "Hey guys, I've decided to retire from fighting." McGregor wrote in a caption below of him and his mother, "Thank you all for the amazing memories. What a ride it's been." So in saying that, toast to Conor McGregor, a little shot of whiskey here from his stuff up top, the proper 12. The end of this bottle anyways. While I'm going to do this shot and hopefully not make a horrible face doing it, because usually I mix with ginger ale. Sean, what are your thoughts on Conor McGregor's third retirement? Is this the end of him? Or, I mean, this is one of the guys who's been rumored to come to pro wrestling. Are we ever going to see it? And just the name Conor McGregor, what does that mean to you as far as just the industry or just his brand goes?
He seems to be the Terry Funk of MMA. He's not going to go anywhere. Somebody like Dana White or whomever are going to show up with another briefcase full of money, and he'll go, okay, and do it again. Like, the guy knows how to hype himself up like professional wrestling, and I think it would do really good if he made the switch over, because he knows what he's doing as far as the promo side, and that's where a lot of people are weak in. And yeah, it'd be okay if he did, but I think somebody's going to rack up another truckload of money for a UFC type fight, or if it's Bellator, anything like that. He'll come out of retirement for the fourth time to do that.
So there was talk, and if you don't want to clean your sinuses, folks, just take a shot of his whiskey right up the nose. There was talk at one point to try to get Floyd Mayweather in an MMA ring against Conor McGregor. I think that right there, I mean, this was a couple of years ago, but I mean, that right there, I think you'd see the end of Floyd Mayweather. But yeah, so three-time retirement for Conor McGregor here. I don't think it's the last of him that we're going to see. I don't think he's going to hit the wrestling business yet, even though Vince McMahon, Triple H, I think would find a way to do something with him. I think it'd be more exciting than Tyson AEW. But I want to get to some Impact Wrestling talk right now, and mainly for two topics here. So number one, this coming Tuesday, so 2 days from now, Impact to make an announcement regarding the future of the World Championship. As Sean had mentioned, Tessa Blanchard has been absent. Better part of, she hasn't been seen since March, has she?
No.
So yeah, so 2 months as 3 months actually going into Impact World Championship. And she has never, I don't think she's ever been able to defend it, has she?
I think she might have gotten one title defense in, but yeah, she's stuck in Mexico where she's living right now with her fiance, Daga. And so until she can do some traveling, you know, the Impact is without their champion. And that's why I guess Moose, in his delusional state, has resurrected the TNA championship and is running around Impact saying he's the real champ and trying to convince, well, in this case, Ace Austin to use his number one contendership against him instead of waiting for Tessa to show up.
All right, so we're going to talk real life versus wrestling. And a two-part question for you. Number one, is this the end of Tessa Blanchard in Impact Wrestling? And the reason I say that is because, number one, she hasn't been available for 3 months. Understandable, COVID-19, this and that. But the way that they're basically building a match between Moose as well as Ace Austin right now, forgetting about Tessa Blanchard, addressing the title situation this coming Tuesday. I haven't heard any spoilers or rumors about what they're going to say. And I don't know, even though if it's been pre-taped, they might just be kind of a live on air. Josh Matthews, Scott D'Amore decides on things. But are we going to see Tessa Blanchard in Impact Wrestling ring again? The other reason I say that is because of the fact that her contract was supposed to expire this coming summer. And now all of a sudden COVID takes place. Contract is probably still going to expire. Whether or not they're going to tack on time because of COVID, I don't know. I don't know what the contract actually states. And if that's the case, do you move things to the TNA championship? Do you immediately make a match between Moose and Ace Austin for the Impact World Championship and forget about TNA once again? What would you do if the company was yours and you knew Tessa's contract was expiring this summer?
Well, if there's any way of extending the contract, like how WWE does when people are injured and not performing, then I could see Impact at least trying to do that because they'll want to get her at least back on TV and do something with it. At the same time, if by chance her contract is over and they can't get her back to North America to at least defend, that at least saves them any backlash or anything that involves having to try and take the title off her. There's been always that confusion or debate, should I say, of what next after she won the men's championship. Does that diminish how things are? Now you're going to have a woman defending a men's title. How does that make the men look? All those questions go out the window once you establish that, oh, she can't participate, and now the belt's back up for grabs. But hopefully, if they do that, hopefully they stick to whatever brackets they format for the tournament takes, because this number one contender tournament that they had, if you look at the original brackets compared to what happened, totally different. They might as well not have even had that tournament happen because it didn't end the way anything looked it should. Yeah, as far as what they should do, they got to get the belt back into play somehow. So maybe strip her of the title and legitimately have somebody battle for it, and maybe somebody like Michael Elgin comes out on top.
Yeah, I mean, Elgin is definitely one of those mainstays. You could easily put the title on him. And he's also, I think he announced he'd been in the wrestling business for 15 years, I think, at this point, which would kind of make sense because of the fact is I remember standing beside him in his early days up in Collingwood. When he still had the mullet going on, and just kind of, this guy, he had such a passion for wrestling, and he was, you knew nothing was going to stop him. And to know the stuff he accomplished over in Japan, to Impact Wrestling and then ROH, obviously, and this and that. So it'd be interesting. I mean, they've definitely got a group of guys over there in Impact Wrestling to continue the company beyond Tessa Blanchard, so to speak. It's just whether or not they're going, what they're going to do with her. Are they going to Roman Reigns her and basically forget about her? It'll be interesting. Second piece of thing I want to talk. That made sense. Second thing I want to talk about as far as Impact Wrestling goes. Sean, have you seen the Slammiversary promo?
Yeah. Basically, it happened at the end of Impact with somebody getting a shot of whiskey and sitting in front of their TV. Watching breaking news of the people that were released on Black Wednesday from WWE. There's talk of who it might be watching it, but the person's wearing a hoodie, and come on, it could be as much as the hacker from SmackDown, Cody. Everybody seems to be doing that visual of sitting in a chair and watching a screen and looking at their back of their head and not knowing who it is. So a little bit of a ripoff, but I see what they're doing. It could be anybody that's showing up. They showed clips of everybody who at least did work for them, whether it was from Global Wrestling, Impact, or TNA. So,
but you're forgetting to mention one thing: the appearance of the Bulgarian flag.
That's what I was going to say.
So, will we see Rusev make his debut at Slammiversary?
Honestly, he's the one. There was a posting on Wrestling Nerds about it, and who do you think it's going to be? And the only one that definitely does make sense is Rusev, because all the other people that were let go have 90-day no-compete clauses, which I think end 2 weeks before Slammiversary. So any of them could show up, but as far as it goes with Rusev, they're recording their shows right now in Nashville. Rusev lives in Nashville with Lana. He's a known Predators fan, so we know where he actually lives. For him to just make a drive over to wherever they're recording and be a part of it is no hassle. And he wasn't released because of of just needing to get rid of people. His contract did not exist, and so I'm pretty sure he's free to go wherever he wants at this time. And depending on what he decides to do, hopping in a car and going a couple blocks to work, that's easy for him. So I'd go with Rusev as being definitely one that's showing up.
But would you be surprised to see him in Impact Wrestling, not AEW, though?
No, I wouldn't be surprised, because if you were given the opportunity to, say, work at a place that's close to your home and do TV tapings and stuff like that, or have to hop on in the car, in this case, like if it was us, and go to Toronto or Windsor to work, I'm going to stay in my hometown and work. Maybe not sign a long-term deal, a year most, and see how it goes. But, AEW has only so much room. Impact has plenty of room, really.
Yeah, hence what we were talking about earlier with Walter and signing with WB, so he could stay close to home. I want to get to some New Japan topic just before we head over to WB talk. Online preference conference taking place this coming Tuesday, June the 9th. New Japan Pro Wrestling would like to invite fans and members of the media to watch a special online press conference this coming Tuesday, June 9th at noon, Japan Standard Time. I think they're 15 hours. So if you're looking at noon, you would probably be looking at, I believe, 9 p.m. on Monday. So right when Raw is taking place. Anyways, press conference will be concerned with the resumption of New Japan Pro Wrestling events. And the press conference is going to be available to watch for free on New Japan World as well as YouTube. Sean, are they coming back too quick? And if they are coming back, and based on what they've said, they don't want to basically cheapen the product by having no fans in attendance. Are we going to see the return of New Japan as well as fans in attendance over there? What are your thoughts on just wrestling getting back to normal as far as Japan goes? And then how long is it going to take, do you think it's going to be before we see it over here?
Yeah, I saw that report also about from Bushiroad saying Stardom and New Japan were going to be returning. I think All Japan as well. It might be too soon still. I don't know what the pandemic situation is over there compared to what is here in North America. But I guess it all depends on how they're doing with safety and if it's viable to do without it becoming a second, third wave, whatever, because I think they might have even had their second wave over that way. Then, getting back to as much as normal as possible, great. But if they can't do it, and we already saw that they said they weren't going to do it without fans, it's a huge judgment call. I'm not the one that's over there and putting money into it either way. But if they do, it's hope for everybody else, I guess. I know here in North America, there's talk that places are going to be allowed, especially in like Florida, to allow 50% capacity. So how quickly is Tony Khan and Vince McMahon going to jump on getting fans in that situation? Could be the same thing over in Japan.
So WWE doesn't want to do a big arena, so they avoid Toronto. They decide to come to London, Ontario instead, and maximum capacity 50%. After not seeing wrestling for as long as we haven't seen it live, are you going to be one of those fans that jumps on it to go to Bud Gardens to watch a live wrestling event?
If I didn't work in the industry that I work in, yes. But I support people with disabilities who have weaker immune systems, so I'm not even allowed to go visit family where Louisa and I have her parents down in Windsor. We can't even travel to that because of our job. But if I didn't have that sort of obligation and stuff like that, then yeah, I'd be hopping on and doing what's needed. Whether it means wearing a mask, fine. Let me do that. I want to see my wrestling.
So hashtag responsibility over wrestling right there. All right, WWE. So you notice this week, no Red Sox, no Raptors, but I decided to go with the Pats hat. To me, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski will always be Patriots. I don't care where the hell they're playing next time the NFL decides to start up. But the fact is, Gronk finally drops the title of the 24/7 championship over to R-Truth once again. Apparently took place in Foxborough, Massachusetts. I think it was part of Raw this past or last Monday. Sean, your thoughts on Gronkowski and the WWE failed experiment?
It was publicity stunt. Let's be honest. The guy is greener than grass. It's one thing to be a fan and love the business and everything, but just because you're a football player doesn't mean you're going to transition. He's friends with Mojo. Like, the guy has zero credibility other than the fact that he's a media magnet, really. I know you're a fan, being a Patriots fan and stuff like that, and he might be good on the gridiron, but in the world of wrestling, he makes it even look goofier than anything. And he was just there essentially as the look at me, we're here, put some eyes on WrestleMania and be a part of that and be the host. If the pandemic didn't happen, he would have been gone sooner than this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. As much as I love Gronk and the Pats, the fact is, way back to WrestleMania, nothing made sense as far as what he was doing. And championship was going to be around his waist, and 24/7 was perfect for him. What I'm amazed that didn't happen is to see Gronk lose the title to Tom Brady. Which I would have, WWE probably would have loved, and probably that might have been the direction that they were going. But in the end, Gronk, decides to turn down WWE contract and basically go back to the NFL. And he's playing with the Bucks whenever NFL resumes. But it's whatevs, I guess, so to speak. I can't see people looking back at Gronk and WWE and thinking positives. But
I think he might have stayed with WWE in a way and retired from the NFL had Tom Brady had hung up his cleats and said enough's enough, but he just doesn't know when to stop either. And he knew that the Patriots weren't going to keep him. And that's why he decided as a free agent to go down to Tampa. And because of that, Gronk followed suit. Had Tom retired a Patriot and walked off the gridiron into the sunset, been remembered as the great quarterback he was, then Gronk could have probably stayed and done the performance center and learned the business. But until that happens, he's attached to Tom Brady without the umbilical cord.
Yeah, hashtag go Pats forever. Last bit of pro news I want to talk about. So Drake Maverick, what do you think he was ever released?
Yes.
So you think?
I know
that was
there's a lot of controversy between that and also I mentioned talking about the Jeff Hardy stuff, but as far as you're talking about with Drake Maverick, yeah, I think he was part of that group legitimately that was released, but because of how much passion he has for the business and wanting to work for WWE, I think he wanted to honor his original bookings because they could have easily pulled him from the tournament and did the replacement of him for it. But he said, hey, he's still going to work. He's done even after that 90 days. And he proved himself as a worthy employee for wanting to do that. The fans got behind him. So, of course, when the fans get behind somebody, sometimes the WWE listens, like they did with Dan O'Brien and a couple other incidents, like Kofi Kingston as well. And fans got behind him. Had fans not cared about his release and all this other stuff, they might have gone a different direction or totally pulled him from the tournament or do whatever. But because people started watching and paying attention to what happened, then yeah, they kept him around and led people on. Now, proving himself that way, they did offer him another contract to stay, as you saw to end NXT, which also goes back to what happened with Cedric Alexander at the Cruiserweight Classic, being able to get a contract that way. So I think he would have been gone, but because of what he did to say, okay, thanks, but I'm going to continue until at least my 90 days are done, he proved his worth and he's kept. I've also heard that they're contacting the ones that were released and trying to get them to possibly come back under different terms, lower pay or whatever. And maybe that's going to happen too, maybe not. But in this case, Drake Maverick proved himself and is getting to stay.
Yeah, so Maverick with a contract, El Hijo de Fantasma, will eventually get the name right, wins the interim Cruiserweight Championship. So we'll see him against Jordan Devlin at a future show when Jordan is able to come back to North America here. Sean, we won't touch base on NXT last week, but any highlights? Did you watch AEW Dynamite last week?
Yep.
Anything that stand out to you?
Well, let's see. They decided to give up on finding Shawn Spears a tag team partner. The promo that Tully Blanchard cut on him was awesome. But then to show up in a vehicle and present him with the glove with no explanation of what the glove means is really dropping the ball and expecting your fans to know what that's about. Now, if you've been a wrestling fan for a long time, you know that people like Ted DiBiase in Mid-South and Blackjack Mulligan and his son, Barry Windham, all use this black glove as sort of, I guess, in a way, brass knuckles sort of weapon for them. But because it's part of their attire, it's allowed, and they were able to become victorious and everything else that goes along with having the glove. But to just leave it out there really kind of drops the ball. I thought the tag team match to start off things really wasn't that great. Kenny Omega continues to look bad. And I'm not trying to take up Steven's rant for him, but I was watching it, and they kept on getting rid of him, and then he was wandering around like a rag doll and taking bumps that just looked really dumb. For a guy who is the top star in all of wrestling just 2 short years ago, working in Japan, everything, his stock is really diminished. If somebody was new to watching Kenny Omega and saw AEW, they would wonder what the hype was about. And I don't get why they're diminishing his star power that way. The ending with also the TNT title on the line, useless and needless blood from Cody. Like, neither of them were heels. There was no need for the blood. Jungle Boy didn't look any better for cutting him open. I don't get it. Like, for everything that they do good, they do bad at the same time. The women's division is weak. You got stars who are illogically booked, refereeing that looks really ridiculous, and you're embarrassing yourself. Like that tag team match at the start of the show again. Back to that. Where's the 10 count? If they want to boast about having a 10 count, do the 10 count. Not just sit there and go, okay, well, you want to get out? No? Okay, keep on going. Like, be the alternative that you want to be. Don't be WWE Light. I want to like you, AEW. Please, do it.
So are they comparable to Impact Wrestling at this point? Are they comparable to WCW?
It's a mixture of both, because you got it's sloppy booking and ripping off WWE on things. Money in the Bank in the same month. You might want to tweak the rules by having 9 people in it. WWE's had multiple people in there, but they all started at one time. AEW, let's gradually put them out there in a Royal Rumble style. It's still a Money in the Bank. You want to do Blood and Guts. That's War Games. Be original. Like, stop being light. I said like TNA. TNA rested their laurels on former WWE guys. What is AEW doing? Like this matchup at Fyter Fest, don't get me on that one for a moment. I'll get to that one in a second. But that's going to be the first time that a person competing for the title is not associated with WWE since it got awarded to Chris Jericho on the first pay-per-view. Fyter Fest. They make this whole big deal about it and say, it's a special event. And I get that. But last year, it was a pay-per-view, a cheap pay-per-view, because they wanted people to see it, and they wanted to, I guess, donate money. I think that one was for. But in this world right now that we're living without a lot of sports, they couldn't find another time than during Dynamite to do Fyter Fest. Like, they could have made a special on TNT because TNT loves them so much, and that's why they gave them the belt. But you couldn't get a special time to do like a Clash of Champions style that way, or Saturday Night's Main Event. You're now taking up time on Dynamite, so it's basically Dynamite under a different name. That doesn't make it any special to me. Put Fyter Fest on a special night. They're making it 2 nights like WrestleMania. Copying again, I guess. Like,
I feel like you're religiously watching Jimmy Corderas lately.
I totally agree with Jimmy Corderas. I watch him every morning, but I'm like, wow, we're on the same wavelength every time. Like, I say something, then I hear Jimmy say it, I'm like, wow. But
okay, last
just frustrated by the lack of professionalism and follow through on what they say they want to do. Like, don't say that I'm going to be different than WWE and then do the exact same opposite. They have so much potential. They have a lot of good talent. They have a lot of green talent not ready for prime time, but they need to put it together and make people want to watch it.
They got Tyson. Not Tyson Dukes, Mike Tyson. All right, last talk on AEW before we hit independent, because I want to talk about this just briefly here. January 29th, 2020. You know what happened?
What? Bash at the Beach?
January 29th, 2020. Any idea what happened?
No.
AEW star Shawn Spears files trademark for The Reaper.
Okay.
So
is that part of his new club thing?
Maybe we'll have to wait and see where it goes. All right. So independence. I just want to touch base on this. Our old pal Danny Warren, who anybody who knows Danny, also competes as Danny Duggan over there in CWE, so Canadian Wrestling's Elite. He used to post almost like 100 times a day on my old CWN Facebook. To the point my wife come up to me, she was like, "Who is this Danny Warren guy?" All in theory, he is a huge wrestling fan who is also a wrestler over there. But I want to take note of something that he posted. So Canadian Wrestling's Elite returned to action with the first live professional wrestling event in all of Canada in front of a live audience post-pandemic, and we invite you to take part in Patient Zero. Join us on Friday, June 12th in Winnipeg, Manitoba at Rookie Sports Bar for the special 18-plus event, limited to only 100 ticket holders per government rules, regulations, and recommendations. Be a part of history as one of the 100 people in attendance for the first live wrestling event in all of Canada, almost 4 months, and be Patient Zero to what all wrestling events will look like as a result of this event concluding. Tickets on sale now. That was posted on June 2nd. Haven't seen anything posted to say the cancellation of it. Wrestling looks to be beginning again, independent style in Winnipeg in front of fans. Shawn, again, too soon, or if this is the way it has to happen with limited capacity, would you be excited to see Midwestern or Smash, say by the end of the month even?
Once again, if the situation was available, I would definitely consider it. I would check to see what I can do, can't do, what's required of me. I'd love to see it. I miss wrestling really bad, but I also care about keeping other people healthy and safe.
So in the perfect world, you'd be like one of the first to get tickets.
Yes.
But in the real world, you're being responsible.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So take that to note, guys. But anyway, CWE is giving it a try. It'll be interesting to see June 12th, which I believe is next weekend, next Friday, I believe. Yeah, it'd be Friday. What's going to take place. So it'd be interesting to see how the event goes and the setup that they've had and everything else. Last thing I want to touch on before we do some plugs, Slam Wrestling, who I've been a huge fan of for the better part of, its whole existence, has officially shut down as far as their website goes, as far as Canoe, which was affiliate with the Toronto Sun. Greg Oliver stepped out, basically said, "Hey, we're going to do our own thing." I don't know what went on. All I know is slamwrestling.net exists now. So guys, if you get a chance, follow them on Facebook, Twitter, check them out. You'll see a book behind me that was written by Greg Oliver. I had a chance to meet him last summer in Toronto, have him sign it. I've interviewed him for one of my previous websites, and that was about 20 years ago. But guys, slamwrestling.net. Check them out and give them your support because they are branching out brand new at this point. So, excuse me. Sean, I'll let you talk about what's going on next in the Fantasy Warfare tournament. Considering the fact it is June, which means June in as far as wrestling goes, used to mean one thing, King of the Ring. So you want to talk about the next Fantasy Warfare tournament that's taking place? I do believe we're recording tomorrow, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we're recording tomorrow. There was talk of what to do this month or this week, and we're do the King of the Ring stuff because like you said, June, King of the Ring, it goes hand in hand. So it's basically King of Kings, taking past kings and comparing them. We all got a choice. 4 of us did 4 entries. And just to run down some of the things that we're doing in the first round, has Steve Corino against William Regal, Booker T against Owen Hart, Jim Duggan versus Harley Race, Steve Austin against Kurt Angle, Wade Barrett against Haku, Curtis Ikea against Jerry Lawler, Triple H against Bret Hart, Edge against Randy Savage. Like, those are going to be some interesting conversations that we have. See who advances, where people stay, but we're going to try and only talk about while they were king, what they did, not before, not after. Of course, what they did before will be relevant to see how the being a king did improve or kind of diminish them, if that even happened. And so tomorrow we're going to be running those down, and it'll be a future show that you can watch on Patreon or a few weeks later on YouTube. But we definitely would love to have Patreon people involved, see it early, and we'll be donating money to a charity.
Yeah, so guys, as Sean was saying, Fantasy Warfare Tournament, King of Kings, I think is what Sean had labeled it. But some interesting matchups, some interesting names as well. Any curveballs, probably courtesy of Chris Jones, otherwise known as Jonesy. But hashtag FWT on TNT or patreon.com/TN Throwdown CA. So it's the best way to check us out. And like Sean was saying, we will do it for the Patreons first. And then, you'll see that launch after we've recorded the show within a couple of days. And then usually about 3 weeks later, you'll see it on YouTube. So YouTube, I've done 2 episodes at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays. You can watch that we've done. Luckily, I didn't lose any of that content. So every Fantasy Warfare tournament that we've ever done is still intact, especially with the banter that sometimes goes on with Steven. But the next one, King of Kings, you'll see probably Sean, Jonesy, if he's available, as well as Steven. I'm going to do the producing part of it. But if you see me on the show, it means either Jonesy, Steven said he was available, so it means Jonesy wasn't available. But anyways, it is fun because we do get into some battles, and some of these choices, some of the matchups that are, happen are like, holy shit, what do we do? You know what I mean? And it's a hard decision. And some of the winners that we've had, some of them make sense. I think Charlotte Flair won the Greatest Women's Champions one. But we had one where all of a sudden it was like Doom coming down into the final 2, which was interesting. So definitely interesting. We probably will announce what's going to happen after King of Kings tomorrow night. But on Thursday Night Throwdown TNT this coming Thursday, so it'll be episode 22, we will announce what's going to take place on future episodes of Fantasy Warfare Tournament, which will in fact probably take a month for us to do. So it's I'm interested and excited. And I think it was Sean's. I think it was a collaboration between myself and Sean and Steven, but Sean had the what to do and how to do it. And I was like, okay, this is actually going to make sense and actually going to be kind of cool. And you actually get to see our wrestling knowledge come out within that month. So it's kind of cool. I'm excited for it. Speaking of excitement, Sean, what's going on in the world of Scumbags of Wrestling /groups/Scumbags of Wrestling on Facebook there?
Well, I kind of want to back up a slight bit on some stuff. You were talking about the Ontario scene or the independent wrestling scene. You mentioned what Danny's doing over in Winnipeg, but there's a backyard wrestling group doing sort of like the Southpaw Championship Wrestling. It involves Holden Albright, Von Vertigo, Alexia Nicole, Psycho Mike, and all their friends. They're doing backyard wrestling stuff, so you want to check those guys out. Plus, we also had Scott Hunter on our show. You mentioned him at the start of everything, and he's been running for the last couple of days this week a promo battle royal or promo tournament, should I say. And some people that are been in it include the Cadet, John Greed, Miss Becky, Shiloh, and Kyle Boone, Elian Habanero, and a few others that are from the indie scene. And they're doing right now round 1, best 2 of 3 promos battle. And we got Kyle versus Shiloh, and they've had quite the interesting promos back and forth with each other at the same time. So definitely check out Scott Hunter. He's doing a great promo tournament with some guys and girls from the indie scene. As far as Scumbags Wrestling goes, I just put down before we started recording here, episode 108 of the Scumbags Wrestling podcast. Our other shows are on hold, unfortunately, still until everything gets back, including the Ontario Indie Road Trip and production line from the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory. But we're also putting in orders for our special design. It's the comic book sort of t-shirt. It's cover with 22 of your top stars, or 22 stars from the Ontario indie scene, including Tyson Dukes, Sebastian Suave, Cody Diener, Brent Banks, Tarek, Hello Beefcake, 3 of the Buffalo Brothers, both Kevins and Daniel Garcia, graduates from the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory. They're all in this comic book style design by Nigel Lewis. And we're raising funds for Steven's Wrestling Journey, which is getting money for Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. And they're doing Chiari research. Chiari is a malfunction or malformation in the back of the brain, and he suffers from that. He's 8 years old. So we're helping to raise money that way. Shirts are just $30 and posters are $15. You can reach me at our Facebook page, Scumbags Wrestling, or email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com to make a purchase and be a part of this great campaign that we're doing. So join us, get an awesome shirt, great design, and help out a great cause at the same time. So that's us in a nutshell.
So and saying that, lots of positive feedback on that t-shirt, eh?
Yes, from different people who've been seeing it. Fans have loved it, but when I shared it with the talent that are all on it, a lot of them were just blown away by how they were encaptured as a comic book character. Kyle Boone said he always wanted to be part of a comic book. Well, he's now on a comic book style shirt. I know Sebastian Suave has been using his image as his Facebook picture. And there's tons of others that have loved it. Carter Mason loved how he was in full stature for his part of the drawing. So, yeah, definitely be a part of this. As Cody Diener says, it's time to give her back. So, give her for charity. And we're going to give to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto.
Yeah, so definitely amazing t-shirt and great cause behind it as well. With regards to myself, there you go, folks. CWN, hashtag CWN Online, CWNonline.ca. Wrestling news, you'll see stuff from TNT, the Scumbags, Ontario Independent Wrestling Scene, a lot of YouTube stuff, a lot of stuff from the UFC, pro wrestling, anything I can get my hands on. Right now, we are an aggregator, which means basically I'm taking content from the internet and letting you know what's available on there. Having more time, I would be able to do, live posts, articles of my own and this and that, but it's my way of contributing towards the wrestling scene, independent as well as pro wrestling, as well as UFC. Something that was cool last night is Saturday night, Chris Jericho does this thing called the Saturday Night Special. And all of a sudden he was doing one last night with regards to high school reunion. So he had 2 of his buddies from high school on there. One guy he had known, I think, from the time he was like 7 or 8 years old. So sure enough, I'm logged into the CWN account and I'm I'm watching Jericho, and I see he's still answering questions. So I post as CWN. So sure enough, my logo, CWN logo, pops up on screen. My question pops up on screen. Jericho, about 2 minutes after that, had said, "Hey, this question comes from CWN." I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, "That's actually kind of cool." Jericho actually had seen my post. So, anyways. I'm loving the small publicity as it is, but again, I started this CWN about, what was it, 11 years ago, and Sean was part of it, and this guy named Ed Simon was part of it as well. The logo today is still very similar to the logo back then. The only thing we're not doing right now is kind of like blog style posts, columns, so to speak. I might reiterate that sometime down the road, but Sean's been a part of that since 11 years ago. My wife, Christine, she gives feedback a lot on a lot of the stuff I do, so that's how she contributes to it. Ed Simon, man, if you want to come back to wrestling, let me know, and I'll give you I'll give you something to do on the website. But yeah, 11 years in going, and it's just being a passionate wrestling fan. And it's I tried, another avenue was the Sharpshooter and the Sharpshooter podcast, and it just never took off the way I wanted it to. And so I went back to CWN, and I'm kind of content and happy with it. And all we need to do is have this stupid COVID thing go away so we can get back to normal life and autograph signings and selling T-shirts at these events and this and that. Because I know there's probably I know personally as a wrestling fan, I'm excited to try to get my hands on one of these T-shirts that Sean's selling. The event that we went to for Midwestern Wrestling, being besides the merch table, doing the podcast live for the Scumbags, having the fans all interact and in front of us and this and that. And I printed out some photos, and they were happy with the photos and stickers and just being part of it all. And man, I can't wait for this stupid thing to end, I tell you that much. But again, Scumbags Are Wrestling for Sean, CWN for myself. Fantasy Warfare Tournament, we'll see Steven and Jonesy part of it as well. And yeah, I don't think I've failed to mention anything. This is almost as long as the Scott Hunter episode, but we'll be back with episode number 22 coming up this coming Thursday, 8 p.m. in a regular spot. Sean, you're probably excited eventually to have the Ontario Indie Road Trip back, as well as the production line. Anything from Tyson as far as when things are going to be available to go back and watch the guys again?
No, I haven't heard anything. Well, at the same time, I haven't reached out because I know gyms are not open yet. People who do follow Tyson and also the Wrestle Factory have seen clips of him and Ethan back at the factory doing little tutorials, but hopefully things will get back to somewhat normal and gyms will open, because when that happens, most likely they'll be able to do some stuff involving the Wrestle Factory, which could be soon opening actually in St. Thomas. I know they thought is to have Tyson with a ring at his own home. So that's down the pike, but we also have the current location here on Exeter Road. So until then, we're just waiting patiently.
Yeah, so guys, enjoy in your house. NXT TakeOver tonight, like I said, live at 7 p.m. Check out the Scumbags of Wrestling. Check out CWN. Check out the Fantasy Warfare Tournament. And that is it. Until next week, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you guys again in 4 days. And Sean, thanks for being part of this once again.
Have a good one. Color to be.